Hello everyone, I'm MR.NightCrime, and I'm here to help you today. To discuss the world's crime news, and I know you use this video to fall asleep. So before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from, and what time are you watching it? Now, make yourself comfortable and relax. In the early hours of January 3rd, 2025, an alarm blared inside the Geneva Private Bank, a high-security facility known for housing assets of the world's elite. By the time authorities arrived, the vault was empty. $200 million in gold bars and untraceable bearer bonds had vanished. The security footage revealed nothing but static, as if the cameras had been jammed. The only clue left behind was a small, burnt drone fragment near the bank's ventilation system. Investigators suspected a highly coordinated operation, possibly involving ex-military professionals. The vault's biometric access system had been bypassed, suggesting an insider's involvement or advanced hacking capabilities. Surveillance footage from surrounding buildings showed a fleet of black SUVs speeding away minutes before the first police response. The bank, desperate to contain the fallout, refused to disclose the full extent of the theft to the public. However, intelligence agencies quietly began tracking unusual financial movements, fearing that the stolen assets could be funding a larger, more sinister operation. Meanwhile, on the dark web, encrypted messages hinted at an imminent second heist, one that could shake the global financial system even further. A week after the Geneva Private Bank heist, intelligence agencies intercepted unusual cryptographic chatter on the dark web. Hidden within layers of encryption, a secretive auction had begun, one that offered stolen bearer bonds and gold bars to anonymous bidders. The digital transaction trail was nearly impossible to trace, bouncing between crypto wallets in multiple jurisdictions. Interpol and Europol scrambled to track the auction's origin, but every lead turned into a dead end. The operation was too precise, too sophisticated. Somewhere in an undisclosed location, a group of shadowy figures monitored the bids, ensuring that only the highest offer secured the stolen assets. Meanwhile, in Dubai, a wealthy investor known for his ties to organized crime was found dead in his penthouse. His encrypted laptop had been wiped clean, but forensic analysts found traces of dark web transactions linked to the auction. Whoever had orchestrated the Geneva heist was eliminating potential loose ends. As investigators closed in, another disturbing clue emerged, an anonymous message sent to financial institutions warning of an upcoming attack on the global banking system. Authorities feared that the Geneva heist was only the beginning. On January 15, 2025, Swiss authorities were set to question Laurent Mercier, the chief security officer of Geneva Private Bank. He had been with the institution for over a decade, overseeing its state-of-the-art biometric vault system. Investigators suspected he either played a role in the heist or possessed crucial knowledge about its execution. But Mercier never made it to the interrogation room. That morning, his car was found abandoned near Lake Geneva, the driver's side door wide open. His phone and wallet were still inside, but there was no sign of him. Surveillance footage from nearby traffic cameras showed his vehicle driving erratically before coming to a sudden stop. Moments later, a black van with no license plates pulled up beside it. Mercier was never seen again. His apartment had been ransacked. The only item missing was his work laptop, which contained classified information on the bank's security protocols. Authorities feared he had been abducted, or worse, silenced. In the following days, an anonymous post appeared on an underground cybercrime forum, stating, "One more piece removed from the board. The game continues." It was now clear, the heist was not just about money. Something much larger was in motion, and anyone who knew too much was being erased. By January 18, 2025, the investigation into the Geneva heist had reached a standstill. The disappearance of Laurent Mercier had sent shockwaves through law enforcement agencies, and fear settled over anyone even remotely connected to the case. Witnesses refused to speak, and those who did seemed to vanish before they could provide any substantial evidence. It was as if a ghost network was operating in the shadows, eliminating obstacles with terrifying precision. Desperate for leads, Interpol's cyber division turned to an independent digital forensics expert, Viktor Sokolov, a former Russian intelligence officer turned security consultant. Sokolov had a reputation for uncovering deeply hidden cyber trails, and within hours of analyzing the dark web chatter surrounding the stolen assets, he found something chilling. A blockchain ledger containing thousands of cryptocurrency transactions had been deliberately corrupted, except for one segment. A single digital signature remained intact, left behind either by mistake or as a taunt. The signature was linked to a known alias, Nexus09, a cybercriminal who had orchestrated financial breaches in the past, but had seemingly disappeared years ago. His last confirmed activity? A cyber attack on a European defense contractor in 2021, which resulted in classified data being leaked to an unknown entity. Sokolov dug deeper, tracing the remaining fragment to an offshore server in Singapore. But before he could access its contents, his system was hit with an advanced counterattack. His screen flooded with a single message in red text: "Step back or become the next ghost." At that same moment, across the world in Zurich, a private jet bound for the Cayman Islands exploded midair, killing all passengers on board. Among them was Henri Vauban, a financial consultant rumored to have laundered money for European elites. Investigators later discovered that Vauban had recently received an encrypted email, presumably from Laurent Mercier, only hours before Mercier vanished. The message contained just one line: "They are not who we think they are." The Geneva heist was no longer just about a bank robbery. It was beginning to look like the first move in a larger, more sinister game, one that involved global finance, high-level cyber warfare, and a secret network willing to kill anyone who stood in their way. By January 21, 2025, the Geneva heist had spiraled beyond the expectations of law enforcement. It was no longer just a case of stolen assets. It had evolved into a series of assassinations, disappearances, and cyber warfare that pointed to something much larger. The stolen gold and bearer bonds were untraceable. The dark web auction had vanished without a trace, and every suspect connected to the case was either missing or dead. The only thread left was Nexus09, the elusive cybercriminal whose signature was found embedded in the corrupted blockchain ledger. But tracking him down proved nearly impossible. Interpol's cyber division, alongside Viktor Sokolov, attempted to locate Nexus09 by analyzing old hacking patterns and financial breaches that matched his style. Every path led to dead ends, except for one anomaly. In a secured offshore data center in Buenos Aires, a fragment of encrypted code matching Nexus09's signature had surfaced on a compromised server belonging to a Swiss multinational corporation. The server had been breached just 2 days after the Geneva heist, but the attack wasn't for financial gain. Instead, it seemed as though someone was searching for information, specifically a classified file labeled Black Cipher. Interpol immediately requested access to the corporation's security logs, but before they could retrieve the data, the entire server farm was destroyed in a massive fire. Initial reports called it an accident, but forensic analysis revealed that the fire suppression system had been remotely disabled, allowing the flames to consume all physical storage devices. The loss of the servers meant the Black Cipher file was gone, at least the official copy. But Sokolov wasn't convinced. Using his own network of informants, he uncovered chatter in underground hacking forums about an encrypted drive stolen from the Buenos Aires facility before the fire. Whoever had taken it wasn't just covering their tracks. They were ensuring that only they had access to whatever information was inside that file. The next breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A whistleblower, using the alias Lucid, reached out to Interpol with a warning. "You're chasing a ghost, but the ghost is chasing something bigger. Black Cipher is the key. Look at the Madrid incident, 2018. The answers are there. The Madrid incident, a cyber attack that had crippled Spain's central banking system for 3 hours, causing billions in temporary losses before mysteriously reversing itself. The attackers had never been caught, and the event had been quietly buried by the European financial elite. Interpol agents in Madrid reopened the classified files from 2018 and found something disturbing. A name buried in the old case files, Laurent Mercier. Before working for Geneva Private Bank, Mercier had been a cybersecurity analyst for a firm that provided encryption services to Spain's banking sector. Was Mercier simply an unlucky pawn in this global conspiracy, or had he known the truth all along? Had he been trying to warn someone before he vanished? As investigators raced to connect the dots, a private contractor working for Interpol in Berlin was found dead in his apartment, his laptop missing. The cause of death, an apparent suicide, but scrawled on the wall in his own blood were the words, "Black Cipher is alive." Whatever was hidden inside that file, someone was willing to kill to keep it secret. And if Mercier had been in possession of it before he vanished, the stakes had just risen exponentially. This was no longer just about a bank heist. This was about control, global, systemic, and absolute. January 24th, 2025. The deeper the investigation into the Geneva heist went, the more it became clear that this was not just a financial crime. It was the surface layer of something far more dangerous. The stolen gold and bearer bonds were a distraction. The real battle was being fought in the shadows, over something called Black Cipher. Interpol's Madrid division, now tasked with re-examining the 2018 Madrid incident, pulled out classified files that had been locked away for years. The cyberattack had lasted exactly 3 hours and 22 minutes, targeting Spain's central banking system. The system had been infiltrated through a zero-day exploit so advanced that even now, forensic analysts struggled to understand how it worked. Billions in transactions had been momentarily rerouted, but then returned. The event had cost the financial world nothing in the end. It was an attack with no financial gain, which made it an anomaly. The only explanation was that the hackers had not been after money. They had been testing something. One name stood out in the buried reports, Laurent Mercier. At the time, he had been a cybersecurity consultant for a firm contracted to reinforce the banking sector's encryption protocols. After the attack, he abruptly resigned, moved to Switzerland, and within months, secured a high-level position at Geneva Private Bank. Why would someone walk away from a financial sector career after being involved in preventing a major cyberattack? Sokolov, working alongside Interpol, dug further. Using metadata from deleted Madrid incident files, he discovered that all reports related to the cyberattack had been altered on the same day in 2019. Someone had gone back and edited the records to erase a specific detail. But digital forensics left ghosts behind. By reconstructing the raw data, Sokolov uncovered what had been removed. A list of 4 encrypted files, all labeled under a codename, Project Black Cipher. The files had been wiped from the government's archives, but one clue remained. A string of characters resembling a blockchain transaction hash. Realizing this could be a hidden ledger entry, Sokolov cross-referenced the hash with private blockchain networks that had existed in 2018. After hours of analysis, he found a partial match, a dead blockchain that had gone offline 6 years ago. There was only one way to find out what had been stored there: reactivating the chain. The Berlin kill switch. As Sokolov worked to reconstruct the dead blockchain, another event shook the investigation. A high-ranking cybersecurity official in Berlin was found murdered in a hotel room, his encrypted hard drive missing. This was the same official who had quietly been assisting Interpol in tracking Nexus 09, the cybercriminal link to the Geneva heist. On the wall of his hotel room, written in red marker, was a single phrase: "The key is in the Berlin kill switch." Interpol agents had no idea what it meant, until they cross-checked the name with intelligence databases. The Berlin kill switch was a top-secret cybersecurity protocol, supposedly developed to shut down European banking infrastructure in case of a catastrophic digital attack. Officially, it was a fail-safe mechanism designed to prevent hackers from taking over financial networks. But if someone was willing to kill to get to it, then maybe it wasn't a fail-safe at all. Maybe it was a weapon hidden inside Black Cipher. The return of Nexus 09. As Sokolov neared a breakthrough in reviving the dead blockchain, an unexpected event occurred. A message, digitally signed by Nexus 09, was sent directly to Interpol's encrypted servers. It contained only 3 words: Berlin, 48 hours. No one knew if it was a warning or a challenge. But one thing was certain: this was no longer just a financial crime. This was cyber warfare. January 26, 2025. The encrypted message from Nexus 09, Berlin. 48 hours. Sent shockwaves through Interpol's cyber division. Every law enforcement agency with access to the case scrambled to decipher its meaning. Was it a meeting, a threat, or a warning of an imminent attack? Berlin was already at the center of the latest murder. A cybersecurity official assassinated in a hotel room, his encrypted hard drive stolen. The last words he left behind: "The key is in the Berlin kill switch," hinted at something buried deep inside Europe's financial security infrastructure. Interpol had no choice but to assume the worst. In 48 hours, something catastrophic was going to happen in Berlin. The hidden ledger. Viktor Sokolov had no time to waste. His attempt to reconstruct the dead blockchain, the one containing traces of Black Cipher, had led to an old, abandoned digital ledger. But as he decoded its fragments, he realized something terrifying. The ledger wasn't just a record of financial transactions. It was an automated protocol, a self-executing smart contract hidden inside the European banking system. If activated, it would trigger massive liquidity shifts between major financial institutions, rerouting billions in digital assets in milliseconds. And then, just as suddenly, it would erase all traces of itself. This was no ordinary heist. This was a silent takeover of the global financial system. And the only thing stopping it from being activated? The Berlin kill switch. The Berlin connection. Buried inside old intelligence files, investigators found the origin of the Berlin kill switch. It had been developed in 2019 as an emergency failsafe to prevent cyber attacks on European financial institutions. The idea was simple. In the event of a catastrophic breach, the kill switch would shut down all financial networks across the continent, preventing hackers from accessing bank accounts, stock markets, and high-value transactions. But what if the kill switch wasn't just a defensive mechanism? What if it had another function, one that only a handful of people knew about? Through old system logs, Sokolov traced the kill switch's development to a black-budget cybersecurity program, one that had connections to Spain's 2018 Madrid cyber attack and, more disturbingly, to Laurent Mercier, the Geneva private bank officer who vanished without a trace weeks ago. Mercier hadn't just been a cybersecurity consultant. He had been one of the original architects of the Berlin kill switch. And if Nexus 09 was warning them about Berlin, it meant that someone somewhere was about to turn it on. Operation Firewall, January 27, 2025. 24 hours left until Nexus 09's deadline. With no other options, Interpol launched Operation Firewall, an emergency task force stationed in Berlin to track down whoever was behind the kill switch activation. Every government cybersecurity agency, intelligence service, and financial crime unit was mobilized. They weren't just looking for a hacker. They were looking for a war criminal. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a Swiss banking executive who had been detained earlier that week for suspicious financial transactions. Under interrogation, he revealed that the kill switch activation was already scheduled. January 28, 2025, 3 a.m. Berlin time. At that exact moment, the financial systems of Germany, France, Switzerland, and Spain would enter a forced shutdown. Banks would freeze. Stock markets would collapse. And in the chaos, an automated system would quietly reroute untold amounts of wealth into untraceable offshore accounts. A digital coup d'etat was about to take place. And somewhere in Berlin, the people responsible were already preparing to push the button. The final warning. As Interpol agents closed in on potential suspects, another encrypted message from Nexus 09 arrived. This time it was more direct. Too late to stop it. Not too late to expose it. Midnight. Brandenburg Gate. No one knew what Nexus 09's true intentions were. Was he behind the kill switch activation? Or was he trying to stop it? There was only one way to find out. At exactly midnight, Interpol agents arrived at Brandenburg Gate, their eyes scanning the historic monument for any sign of Nexus 09. A lone figure stood near the eastern arch, face obscured by a hood. As agents approached, the figure simply dropped a USB drive onto the ground and vanished into the night. Inside the drive was a single video file. Interpol analysts played it. The footage showed a secret meeting. High-ranking executives, intelligence officers, and cybersecurity experts sitting in a private conference room. The recording was grainy, but the conversation was clear. Berlin kill switch is not a failsafe. It's the key to the new financial order. The world won't be able to stop it, and no one will even know who pulled the trigger. As the video ended, an emergency alert flashed on Interpol's systems. January 28, 2025, 3 a.m. Berlin financial network status compromised. The kill switch had been activated, and the world was about to change forever. January 28, 2025, 3 a.m. Berlin time. The moment the Berlin kill switch was activated, the financial nerve center of Europe collapsed. Within seconds, Germany's banking network went dark. Customers trying to access their accounts found their balances frozen. International wire transfers were blocked. ATMs shut down. By 3:02 a.m., the stock exchanges in Frankfurt, Paris, Madrid, and Zurich reported a complete trading halt. The electronic systems controlling institutional investments, corporate holdings, and foreign currency reserves had been overridden. And then, at 3:05 a.m., the real horror began. Instead of simply freezing accounts, the system initiated an automated financial rerouting protocol. one designed to move massive amounts of wealth through an elaborate maze of offshore holdings, cryptocurrency transactions, and shell corporations. Trillions of euros, dollars, and digital assets were disappearing into the abyss. This wasn't just a heist. This was an economic coup. The collapse begins. By 3:30 a.m., the effects were visible. The global financial markets, already fragile from geopolitical tensions, reacted violently. The Tokyo Stock Exchange, one of the only major exchanges still open due to time zones, crashed by 11% in a single hour. Banks across Asia reported liquidity shortages as billions of dollars in digital assets vanished. At 4 a.m., emergency meetings were held across Europe. Government officials, central bankers, and intelligence agencies scrambled to stop the bleeding, but the system wouldn't respond. The Berlin kill switch was doing exactly what it had been designed to do: transfer absolute financial control to those who activated it. And then, at 4:15 a.m., the world's largest hedge funds and institutional investors received private messages from unknown sources. The message was simple: you have two choices: accept the new system or be erased from it. This wasn't just about stealing money. Someone was replacing the financial order with a new one. The race against time. While governments and financial institutions struggled, Interpol and cybersecurity experts were running a parallel operation, hunting for the source of the kill switch activation. The video from Nexus 09, dropped at Brandenburg Gate, had exposed the truth. The kill switch was no accident. It had been planned for years, and someone in the highest levels of power had authorized it. By 5 a.m., forensic analysts managed to trace part of the command that activated the kill switch. The signal had originated from a secure underground server in Berlin, one that had been decommissioned years ago. A former Cold War bunker, buried beneath the city, had been reactivated as a digital war room. Whoever was inside had launched the most sophisticated cyber attack in history. The bunker. By 6 a.m., Interpol agents, German special forces, and NATO cyber units converged on an abandoned East German government facility in the heart of Berlin. Satellite data showed activity in an underground complex, one that was supposed to have been sealed after the Cold War. But someone had reactivated it, and inside, the command center of the Berlin kill switch was still operational. Armed teams breached the facility at 6:30 a.m., moving through the dark corridors of a decades-old bunker. Encrypted servers hummed in the shadows, their data centers still executing automated financial commands at terrifying speeds. And then, at 6:45 a.m., they found the control room. Empty. The operators were gone. But the kill switch activation sequence was still running. Sokolov, working remotely, hacked into the mainframe in a desperate attempt to stop it. Every second counted. Trillions were still being moved, and soon, the world's financial system would be fully replaced. The firewall defense. At 6:55 a.m., Sokolov found a way in. A manual override buried deep in the code. But there was a problem. If he shut it down, the system wouldn't just stop. It would trigger an automatic data purge, wiping out all records of where the stolen money had gone, erasing any chance of recovering the assets. Interpol had two choices. 1. Stop the attack now, saving the financial system, but losing the money forever. 2. Let the attack play out a little longer, tracking where the money was going, but risking total economic collapse. The decision had to be made in seconds. Sokolov sent a direct message to Interpol's command team. I can stop this, but if I do, we lose the money trail. What's the call? The betrayal. As the command team debated, a single gunshot echoed through the bunker. One of the Interpol agents in the control room collapsed, a bullet through his skull. Standing over him was another agent, his gun still raised. And in that moment, everyone realized the truth. Someone inside Interpol had been working with the attackers all along. Before anyone could react, the rogue agent turned his gun toward the servers and fired. Bullets ripped through the machines, shattering hard drives and setting off emergency protocols. On Sokolov's screen, a final message flashed. Kill switch integrity compromised, purging all logs. And then, total blackout. The financial attack had ended, but the money was gone. Aftermath. By 7:30 a.m., the world's financial networks began to stabilize. Banks cautiously restored access to accounts. Stock exchanges resumed trading, though trillions had already been lost in the temporary freeze. Governments reassured the public that the crisis had been averted, but behind closed doors, the truth was far darker. No one knew who was truly behind the attack. Asterisk the rogue agent was killed before he could be interrogated. Asterisk the stolen money, estimated at over $6.4 trillion, was never recovered. Asterisk Nexus 09 had vanished again. The only clue left behind was an encrypted message found deep inside the kill switch code. One final taunt from the attackers. This was only a test. A new world order? In the following weeks, elite financial circles quietly reorganized. New offshore financial entities appeared overnight. Unknown groups suddenly had control over previously restricted global assets. Entire corporations shifted hands. Somewhere in the shadows, the people behind the Berlin kill switch were rewriting the financial rules of the world, and no one could stop them. The Geneva heist had been the first domino. Berlin had been the proof of concept, and the real game had only just begun. February 2nd, 2025, Geneva, Switzerland. The fallout from the Berlin kill switch attack was still unraveling. Governments and financial institutions scrambled to restore trust in the markets, but deep inside intelligence circles, a terrifying new pattern was emerging. The people who were supposed to control the financial world, the billionaire investors, corporate heads, and banking magnates, were disappearing. One by one, without a trace. The first disappearance. It started with Laurent Mercier, the former Geneva private bank executive who had helped design the kill switch. His name had surfaced multiple times during Interpol's investigation. He had been missing for weeks, but now there was proof he had been alive after the Berlin attack. Security footage from a private airstrip in Dubai showed him boarding a jet on January 30th, 2025. Destination unknown. The aircraft's flight path was erased from aviation records. Hours later, a wrecked Gulfstream G650 was found deep in the Indian Ocean, its transponder ripped out. The official report called it an accident, but forensic teams discovered something chilling. There was no human remains in the wreckage. Mercier had been on that plane, but he hadn't died in the crash. The Monaco incident. While intelligence agencies dissected Mercier's disappearance, another name surfaced. Alessandro De Rossi, an Italian billionaire who controlled several European banking institutions, vanished while dining in Monaco. His security detail had been with him the entire evening. CCTV footage showed him entering the Monte Carlo casino at 10:12 p.m. He never left. Police searched every inch of the building. No exits, no tunnels, no record of him leaving. His personal guards, who had been waiting outside, swore they never lost sight of the entrance. De Rossi had simply ceased to exist. The blacklist. Interpol analysts pieced together the pattern. Since January 29th, 7 high-profile figures had disappeared across different continents. All of them had one thing in common. They had been major players in the global financial system before the Berlin attack. Asterisk Laurent Mercier, Geneva private bank. Last seen boarding a plane, declared dead in a crash, but body missing. Asterisk Alessandro De Rossi, Italian finance tycoon. Vanished from a casino in Monaco. Asterisk Han Soo-jin, South Korean digital asset mogul. Disappeared after entering his Seoul headquarters, CCTV footage erased. Asterisk Elena Petrovna, Russian investment oligarch. Found dead in her London penthouse, but the security logs showed no one had entered or exited the building. Asterisk Carlos Menendez, Mexican banking dynasty heir. Kidnapped in broad daylight in Madrid, no ransom demand. Asterisk Jonathan Ashford, British crypto billionaire. Yacht found drifting near Malta, empty except for his laptop, which had been wiped clean. Asterisk Dominique Lefebvre, French hedge fund CEO. Walked into a police station in Lyon, asked to speak to the French intelligence director, and then suddenly collapsed, dead from an unknown toxin. Every name on this list had something in common. All of them had connections to offshore banking networks, and all of them had been involved in some capacity with the Berlin kill switch attack. Someone was hunting them. The unraveling conspiracy. At Interpol headquarters in Lyon, Viktor Sokolov analyzed the remaining fragments of the kill switch financial transfer logs before they were erased. The missing money, over $6.4 trillion, had been fragmented into thousands of digital wallets. Most of those wallets were hidden behind layers of shell companies, dark pools, and untraceable crypto ledgers. But there was one anomaly. A fraction of the money, just $220 million, had been transferred into a single, traceable account. It belonged to Elias van der Meer, an elusive Dutch billionaire known for running one of the world's largest private intelligence networks. Van der Meer had been a ghost for over a decade. His business empire was off the books, a network of cyber mercenaries, security firms, and economic warfare specialists. He was rumored to have orchestrated entire government collapses in emerging markets. If he had received money from the Berlin kill switch operation, it meant one thing. The financial attack had not just been about money. It had been about power. And now, someone was eliminating the people who knew too much. The Paris meeting. Desperate for answers, Sokolov arranged a meeting with a former European intelligence officer who had once worked alongside Vandermeer. The meeting was set for February 3, 2025, at 11 p.m. in Paris, inside an abandoned railway tunnel beneath Gare d'Austerlitz. Sokolov arrived early, scanning the darkness. The underground passage smelled of damp concrete and rusted metal. The contact, Emmanuel Rochet, a retired operative from France's DGSE, arrived minutes later, looking uneasy. "There's something you need to understand," Rochet whispered. "The Berlin kill switch was never about destabilizing Europe. It was a test run, a prototype. The real event hasn't even started yet." Before Sokolov could respond, gunfire erupted from the far end of the tunnel. A sniper round tore through Rochet's skull, dropping him instantly. Sokolov dove behind a concrete pillar, drawing his weapon as bullets ricocheted off the walls. Whoever was attacking wanted to silence him too. He fired back, hitting one of the assailants, a masked figure wearing high-grade tactical gear. The attacker collapsed, but before Sokolov could reach the body, the others dragged it away and vanished into the darkness. The only clue left behind was a single silver coin, engraved with a symbol. A serpent wrapped around a globe. The Ghost Network. Sokolov fled Paris that night, going completely off-grid. He sent a final encrypted message to Interpol before disappearing. This isn't just an economic coup. It's a restructuring of power. We are already at war. We just don't know it yet. Hours later, the message was intercepted by an unknown entity. A single reply was sent back. "We see you, Sokolov, and we are waiting." The financial crisis was over, but something much, much bigger had just begun. February 5, 2025, undisclosed safe house, Belgrade, Serbia. Viktor Sokolov sat in a dimly lit apartment in Belgrade, staring at a laptop screen filled with encrypted data. He had been running for 48 hours since the assassination in Paris. Every intelligence agency in Europe was looking for him, not because they thought he was responsible, but because he was the only one who knew the truth. The financial chaos triggered by the Berlin kill switch was just the beginning. The world's most powerful figures, the ones who pulled the strings from the shadows, were disappearing, and the only connection between them was their involvement in offshore banking networks. But it wasn't just a series of assassinations. It was a purge. Someone was resetting the balance of global power, and Sokolov was the only one who had seen the pattern. The clue in the coin. He picked up the silver coin he had found in Paris, the one left behind by the assassins. A serpent wrapped around a globe was engraved into the metal. The symbol nagged at him. He had seen it before, years ago, in a classified dossier while working for Interpol. After several minutes of searching, he found what he was looking for in a blacklisted intelligence report buried in the European Security Archives. The symbol belonged to a secretive organization known as Orbis, a clandestine financial order that had existed for centuries. Their origins trace back to the early 19th century, when European banking families and industrialists created an invisible empire, one that functioned outside of governments, operating through private intelligence networks, proxy wars, and financial manipulation. Their motto was chillingly simple: control the currency, control the world. The world had always believed that nations controlled wealth, but in reality, Orbis controlled nations. And now, for some reason, they were eliminating their own members. The vanishing cities. While Sokolov studied Orbis, another alarming pattern emerged. Entire financial districts were going dark. February 1st, 2025. A massive fire destroyed a private banking server farm in Singapore, erasing records of trillions in offshore assets. February 3rd, 2025. A cyber attack hit Zurich, disabling the financial headquarters of Switzerland's largest hedge funds. February 4th, 2025. Multiple CEOs of cryptocurrency exchanges in the United States, China, and Japan resigned suddenly, citing security concerns. February 5th, 2025. The London Stock Exchange suffered a massive data breach, with critical trading information stolen, but no ransom demand was made. Someone was systematically dismantling the old financial system. The exiled banker. Sokolov needed answers. One name stood out: Nathaniel Wexler. A former Orbis insider, Wexler had been excommunicated from the secretive order over a decade ago. He had vanished into obscurity, but intelligence reports suggested he was hiding somewhere in Istanbul, Turkey. Sokolov booked passage under a fake identity, taking the Balkan Express train from Belgrade to Istanbul. He avoided flights; airports were too dangerous. He knew that Orbis had infiltrators everywhere. He spent the train ride dissecting the kill switch attack, trying to understand why Orbis had used such an aggressive method to shift global wealth. And more importantly, why were they killing their own members? The meeting in Istanbul. By the time Sokolov reached Istanbul, the city was alive with rumors. Word on the streets was that someone was buying influence in the underground markets, using an unknown but limitless supply of wealth. The whispers hinted at a new power structure forming beneath the surface of the financial world. Sokolov found Wexler hiding in a crumbling mansion on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by layers of old books, ancient ledgers, and financial records dating back centuries. The man had aged, his once sharp eyes now weary, but still filled with a dangerous intelligence. "You shouldn't have come here," Wexler muttered, pouring a glass of whiskey. "I need answers," Sokolov said. "The Berlin kill switch, the assassinations, the coin. What the hell is happening?" Wexler sighed, rubbing his temples. "You already know the answer," he said. "Orbis isn't just eliminating people. They're burning their past." "What do you mean?" "They built the old system. Offshore accounts. Shadow banks. The markets you think are real. They were nothing but an illusion they controlled. But now," Wexler hesitated, "now they're replacing it with something new. Something absolute." Sokolov felt a cold dread settle in. "They don't need billionaires anymore," Wexler continued. "They don't need banks. They don't need corporations. They're cutting out the middlemen. And when they're finished, there won't be a financial system left, at least, not one that you or I understand." Sokolov leaned forward. "Then what's the endgame?" Wexler chuckled darkly. "The world's first completely invisible economic empire. A system where no one controls money, because money, as we know it, will cease to exist." The last warning. Sokolov tried to process what he had just heard. If Orbis was truly dismantling the old system, it meant that every economy on Earth would soon become obsolete. Governments wouldn't be able to print money. Corporations wouldn't be able to store wealth. Every financial transaction would be controlled by an entity that existed entirely outside the system. And whoever held that power owned the world. Wexler stood up, pacing the room. "You're already marked, Sokolov. You're not supposed to be alive. Whatever Orbis is doing, they're not going to let you interfere." A sudden noise outside froze them both. Sokolov grabbed his gun. Wexler backed away from the window. Then silence. Sokolov moved cautiously toward the door. He could feel the tension thick in the air. And then, in an instant, the walls exploded inward. The force threw Sokolov to the ground. Dust filled his lungs. Gunfire erupted outside. Dark figures in tactical gear swarmed in, weapons raised. Wexler tried to run, but a single suppressed shot ended his escape. Sokolov barely managed to roll behind cover as the assassins moved in for the kill. He had walked straight into a trap. The escape. With Wexler dead, Sokolov was out of allies. The assassins advanced, methodical and silent, their weapons fitted with thermal scopes that could detect his movements. Sokolov fired back, taking out two of them before diving through a shattered window, crashing onto the street below. Blood dripped from a gash in his arm as he ran through the narrow alleyways, dodging bullets. The assassins were professionals. They weren't missing their shots. But Sokolov had one advantage. Istanbul was a labyrinth. He vanished into the maze of the Grand Bazaar, slipping into a hidden passageway only the old smugglers knew about. The assassins lost him in the crowd. By the time he emerged on the other side of the city, he was bleeding, exhausted, but still alive. Orbis had sent their message. They had burned their past. And now, they were coming for the future. February 6, 2025, somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea. Victor Sokolov sat in the dark cabin of a cargo ship, staring at the encrypted tablet screen in front of him. The only light came from the flickering overhead bulb, casting deep shadows across the metal walls. His breath was steady, but his mind raced. He had barely escaped Istanbul alive, slipping onto this vessel at the last minute using a forged identity. The assassins, Orbis silent enforcers, were hunting him. Nathaniel Wexler was dead. The last person who could have told him why the world's financial elite were being erased had been silenced. And yet, The few words Wexler had managed to say before the ambush still echoed in his mind. They don't need billionaires anymore. They're cutting out the middlemen. They're creating something new. Sokolov exhaled, running his fingers through his hair. He knew what Orbis was doing. They weren't just collapsing the financial system. They were replacing it. But with what? The vanishing trillions. Since the Berlin kill switch attack, nearly $6.4 trillion had disappeared from global markets. While intelligence agencies scrambled to track the missing funds, Sokolov had discovered something terrifying. The money hadn't just vanished, it had moved. Across thousands of accounts, hidden through layers of encrypted financial networks, pieces of the stolen wealth had been redirected into a system that didn't officially exist. Sokolov pulled up the latest logs on his tablet. He had cracked part of Wexler's private data cache before the ambush, and what he found sent chills through his spine. A new financial entity had been created, one that operated entirely outside of global banking regulations. Asterisk no central banks. Asterisk no government oversight. Asterisk no physical currency. A digital monetary network that couldn't be taxed, traced, or controlled. And the terrifying part? The world's largest corporations were already integrating into it. The ghost transactions. A message popped up on his screen. An encrypted file from an anonymous source. Sokolov hesitated before opening it. Inside was a list of massive financial transactions that had taken place over the past 5 days. Each transaction was worth billions, but not a single one had been processed through the usual financial institutions. No banks, no intermediaries. The money had been transferred through an entirely separate economic network. Sokolov's hands clenched. This was it, the proof that Orbis had already built their new financial system, and it was fully operational. He scrolled through the document, his eyes narrowing as he recognized the names of corporations, defense contractors, energy conglomerates, and media empires. They were already moving into the system. They weren't fighting the financial collapse. They were embracing it, the hidden power. Sokolov dug deeper into the file, looking for the origin point of these transactions. That's when he found it. The Black Vault. It was an off-the-books financial hub, a hidden node where the new digital economy was being tested. No known physical location. No official records. Just a single reference in Wexler's files. Vault 017, the Nexus. Sokolov had seen something similar before, years ago, while working on cybercrime cases. Black vaults were theoretical financial servers designed to operate in the shadows, accessible only to those who had the right credentials. But if Orbis had created one, it meant that the entire global economy was already being transferred into their control. Governments didn't even know it was happening. The unholy alliance. Sokolov took a deep breath. He had uncovered something far worse than a financial coup. This wasn't just about money. This was warfare. A new kind of global conquest. One where nations wouldn't fall to armies, but to the silent, invisible shift of economic power. The old elite, the billionaires, the corporate dynasties, the banking moguls, they were being eliminated because they no longer fit into the new system. Orbis wasn't just resetting the economy. They were erasing the old world order. And the worst part, they weren't doing it alone. Sokolov scrolled further down the file, his pulse quickening as he recognized some of the names funding the new system. The world's most powerful governments were already complicit. Asterisk the United States Department of Defense had funneled black budget funds into the system. Asterisk the European Central Bank had quietly moved experimental reserves into it. Asterisk China's Ministry of State Security had restructured their digital yuan policy to integrate with it. Asterisk the Russian Federation's sovereign wealth fund had begun investing in it. Orbis hadn't just built an alternative economic system. They had sold it to the very nations they were dismantling. The next target. Sokolov's mind raced. He was running out of time. He needed to find Vault 017 before the full transition happened. The moment Orbis completed the shift, the old financial world would collapse overnight, and no one outside their network would be able to function in the new one. He pulled up a final encrypted document from Wexler's cache. It was a geolocation marker. There was only one clue. North Africa, Nomad Protocol activated. Sokolov exhaled. Vault 017 was somewhere in North Africa. He had to get there before Orbis wiped out the last remaining traces of the old economy. Because once they did, the world would wake up to a new reality where money no longer belonged to governments, corporations, or people. It would belong to Orbis, and whoever didn't comply with their system would be erased, just like the billionaires before them. Just like Nathaniel Wexler. Just like Sokolov, if he didn't move fast enough. The journey into the unknown. Sokolov shut the laptop, his jaw set. He had one last shot at stopping the deep reset, and it was taking him straight into the most dangerous financial war ever fought. One where the battlefield was invisible, but the consequences were real. Outside, the cargo ship cut through the dark waters of the Mediterranean, heading south. Into Africa, into the heart of the New World Order, and straight into the lion's den. February 7th, 2025, the edge of the Sahara, Mauritania. The wind howled across the barren expanse of the desert, kicking up fine grains of sand that swirled in ghostly patterns under the pale light of the moon. Viktor Sokolov adjusted his keffiyeh, shielding his face from the biting wind as he stepped off the back of an old cargo truck. He had spent the last 36 hours moving through a network of smugglers, black market traders, and exiled financiers, using every favor he had left to reach this point. The only clue to Vault 017's location had been a cryptic reference: North Africa, Nomad Protocol activated. He had spent the last day piecing together what it meant. The answer lay in the Sahara's hidden economy, a shadow network of smugglers, arms dealers, rogue financiers, and intelligence operatives who functioned entirely outside of the modern banking system. If Orbis was using Africa to build their new financial empire, then Vault 017 had to be connected to this hidden network. Sokolov glanced at the armed men surrounding the truck, his temporary escorts. They weren't military, nor were they mere bandits. These were members of Les Eclipses, a highly secretive syndicate that had controlled black market trade routes across the Sahara for decades. The leader, a tall man with scarred hands known only as Noor, studied Sokolov with cold amusement. They had smuggled everything from stolen oil to counterfeit currency, but now, even their world was changing. And it was because of Orbis. The ghost markets. Sokolov followed Noor through a series of underground tunnels carved into the desert rock, descending into a hidden marketplace known as Zemlet Elouid, a city of ghost traders, where nothing existed on paper, and yet fortunes were exchanged daily. There was no government presence here, no electronic surveillance, no official banking system, just pure, unregulated commerce operating entirely on trust, barter, and coded transactions. And yet, even this place had begun to change. Noor gestured toward a section of the market where traders huddled over screens, murmuring in hushed voices. Sokolov walked closer, his heart pounding as he saw what they were looking at. It was the same digital financial system he had uncovered on Wexler's laptop. It was Orbis' new economy, and it had already infiltrated even the most hidden corners of the financial underworld. No one used paper currency anymore. No one relied on gold, diamonds, or even cryptocurrency. They were using Orbis' system, a closed-loop financial network where credits were assigned based on an individual's access, influence, and standing within the new structure. Sokolov watched as a trader swiped his wrist over a device, transferring an unseen sum to another merchant. It was seamless, instantaneous, completely invisible to the outside world. The vanishing wealth. Sokolov pulled up his own encrypted device and began scanning the network. The more he searched, the worse it got. Hundreds of billions had already been funneled into the system from corporations across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Entire industries, pharmaceuticals, defense, agriculture, logistics, had begun switching their operations over. Even government agencies had started experimenting with the system. It was no longer an alternative economy. It was becoming the economy. And those who refused to integrate, they were being eliminated. That was why Orbis had orchestrated the Berlin kill switch attack. That was why billionaires, corporate leaders, and financial elites were disappearing. They weren't just being assassinated. They were being removed from the system. The Nomad Protocol. Sokolov had no doubt that Vault 017, the hidden command center of Orbis' financial revolution, was buried somewhere deep within the Sahara. But the real question was why they had chosen this location. Africa had never been a central player in global finance. It had been a resource hub, a battlefield for economic powers, but never the core of the financial world. So why here? He needed more information. He turned back to Noor. I need to find the people who built this system. Noor's eyes darkened. That's not a road you want to walk. Sokolov didn't respond. He knew the risks. But he had come too far to stop now. The digital war begins. That night, Sokolov moved deeper into the black market networks, piecing together whispers, encrypted messages, and data fragments. By dawn, he he had uncovered something even more terrifying. Vault 017 wasn't just a financial hub. It was a command center for something far worse. A new directive had been issued, one that had yet to reach the outside world. Within 2 weeks, the world's remaining financial institutions would collapse entirely. Asterisk the last major banks would be phased out. Asterisk physical currency would become obsolete. Asterisk government-issued digital currencies would be absorbed into Orbis system. Asterisk anyone who did not register in the new financial network would be cut off permanently. The final phase of the deep reset was about to begin. And Sokolov was standing at the very edge of the new financial empire. There was only one choice left. He had to find Vault 017, and he had to destroy it before the old world disappeared forever. February 8, 2025, somewhere in the Western Sahara. The convoy moved through the dunes in near silence, their engines modified to run almost noiselessly in the night. Viktor Sokolov sat in the back of a heavily armored off-road vehicle, his gaze fixed on the horizon. His mind was racing. He had spent the last 48 hours infiltrating the Sahara's black market financial networks, tracing encrypted transactions, and digging into the last known records of Vault 017. He was close. Too close. The deeper he looked, the more terrifying the truth became. Orbis wasn't just building a new financial empire, they were systematically replacing the old one. And they were nearly finished. The last known location. From the intelligence Sokolov had gathered, Vault 017 wasn't just a digital command center. It had a physical location, a hidden site somewhere deep in the Western Sahara, buried beneath layers of abandoned military infrastructure and forgotten geopolitical conflicts. The only remaining clue was a reference in Orbis internal communications. Base X, Secure Grid 34.9/-7.1, Red List operational. Sokolov had spent years working in intelligence, and he knew exactly what Red List meant. It meant target elimination. It meant Orbis was preparing to remove the last obstacles to their total economic takeover. And it meant that anyone who got too close wouldn't make it back. The hidden war. Nor, the leader of Les Eclipses, sat across from Sokolov, watching him carefully. His men, mercenaries, former military contractors, and ex-smugglers, were uneasy. They had survived wars, revolutions, and international manhunts. But even they feared Orbis. "You realize what you're stepping into," Nor finally said. "This isn't just a data leak or a financial coup. This is the birth of a new global power." Sokolov didn't reply. He already knew. Orbis had moved beyond banks, beyond corporations, beyond governments. They had created a self-sustaining financial ecosystem, one that was immune to regulation, untouchable by law, and invisible to traditional intelligence agencies. And within the next 2 weeks, it would be fully operational. Sokolov checked his gear. A modified satellite uplink, an encrypted drive, and a single mission. Find Vault 017. Extract the data. Destroy the system before it's too late. But first, he had to survive getting there. The desert fortress. Hours later, as the sun began to rise over the dunes, Sokolov saw it. Base X, or at least what was left of it. On the surface, it was nothing more than the ruins of an abandoned military complex. Old concrete bunkers, rusting watchtowers, and the skeletal remains of aircraft hangars. But Sokolov knew better. Orbis wouldn't leave their greatest asset exposed. Vault 017 had to be below the surface. The infiltration. Sokolov moved with precision, slipping through the ruins under the cover of shifting sandstorms. He counted at least 20 guards, not military, not local militia, but Orbis private security forces. These weren't ordinary mercenaries. They were trained, equipped with cutting-edge surveillance technology, and most importantly, they weren't expecting intruders. Sokolov waited until the last patrol passed before slipping through a hidden access tunnel. The moment he entered, he felt it, the hum of underground power generators. This wasn't an abandoned site. It was fully operational. He was in the right place. The deep core. As Sokolov moved deeper underground, the entire facility changed. The ruined walls gave way to sleek, modern corridors, polished steel, biometric scanners, and high-security checkpoints. This wasn't just a data center. It was a nerve center, the beating heart of Orbis' new financial empire. Sokolov pulled up his scanner. The deeper he went, the more he realized the scale of what he was dealing with. Vault 017 wasn't just a server farm. It was a global command center, directly linked to the world's most powerful corporate and government networks. And worst of all, it was already live. The kill sequence. Sokolov reached the core of the facility. Rows upon rows of quantum servers hummed with energy, processing trillions of transactions per second. A massive holographic display dominated the room, showing a real-time global financial map. He saw it happening. Asterisk, the U.S. Federal Reserve was already connected. Asterisk, the European Central Bank's assets were being transferred. Asterisk, China's financial system was merging with Orbis architecture. Asterisk, independent banks were disappearing, swallowed whole. The final transfer protocols had already been initiated. In less than 72 hours, the old financial system would be completely erased. Sokolov didn't hesitate. He plugged in his encrypted drive, launching a disruptive protocol, a last-resort cyber attack designed to cripple Orbis core infrastructure. It would take just 10 minutes to break the entire system. But before he could finish, an alarm blared. They knew he was here. The escape. The facility went into lockdown. Sokolov heard footsteps, heavy boots coming fast. The corridor lights turned red, security doors slammed shut. His escape routes were vanishing. He had two options. Asterisk, finish the upload and risk being caught. Asterisk, abort the attack and escape with whatever data he could salvage. His hands shook. He had come too far. Then he heard it, gunfire. The guards were already moving in. He had seconds to decide. The last transmission. Sokolov made his choice. He initiated the kill sequence, encrypting the data he had extracted and sending it to an offshore intelligence server, the last untraceable node outside of Orbis control. The moment the transfer was complete, he yanked out the drive and ran. Explosions rocked the facility. Orbis defenses had been triggered. They would rather destroy Vault 017 than let it fall into enemy hands. Sokolov barely made it to an exit hatch before the first shockwave hit. The entire facility collapsed in a controlled detonation. As he stumbled out into the desert night, covered in dust and sweat, he heard helicopters approaching. Orbis wasn't done with him yet. The chase begins. Sokolov had one advantage. He now held the only remaining data on Orbis network, and somewhere in that data was the key to stopping them. But he had no allies left, no safe havens, and Orbis had just activated the full force of their global network to hunt him down. This wasn't just a fight against a financial empire. This was a war against the future itself, and the countdown had already begun. February 9th, 2025, the Western Sahara, 40 kilometers from Vault 017. The desert night was a sea of black, interrupted only by the dull glow of distant fires, the remnants of Vault 017 collapsing into itself. Viktor Sokolov ran across the shifting sands, lungs burning, mind racing. Orbis knew he was alive. Above him, helicopters roared through the sky, scanning the dunes with infrared spotlights. They were hunting him. No backup, no allies, no way out. The encrypted drive in his pocket held the only remaining blueprint of Orbis' financial empire. If he was caught, it was over, not just for him, but for the last remnants of the old world economy. The new financial system was almost fully operational. Governments were already integrating into it. Banks were vanishing overnight. In less than 72 hours, Orbis would own the entire global economy, and no one would be able to stop them. Sokolov needed to disappear. But first, he needed to survive the night. The desert gauntlet. Sokolov moved fast, sticking to the dunes, keeping low. He knew Orbis methods. They wouldn't send soldiers to capture him. They would deploy autonomous drone units, unmanned, silent, and relentless. And they had already arrived. A high-pitched whine sliced through the air. Sokolov threw himself into the sand, just as a drone-mounted sniper round whizzed past his head, kicking up dust. The desert exploded in flashes of light as the drones began their sweep, precision fire peppering the dunes. He had one chance. A few kilometers ahead, hidden beneath the sand, was an old smuggler's tunnel, a relic of the region's black market history. If he could reach it before the drones locked onto him, he might have a chance to escape. Sokolov took off, running full speed. The drone killers. The air filled with mechanical clicks, the sound of targeting systems recalibrating. They had locked onto him. Sokolov grabbed a small EMP grenade from his belt, his last one. He twisted the timer to 3 seconds and hurled it behind him. The detonation was silent, just a ripple of energy. But it worked. 3 of the nearest drones dropped instantly, their systems fried. The others hesitated, recalibrating. That was all the time he needed. Sokolov dived into the smuggler's tunnel, just as another sniper round shattered the rocks above him. Then, darkness. He was underground. Safe for now. But he could already hear the distant whir of more drones moving to surround the tunnel's exit. They wouldn't stop. Not until he was dead. The underground escape. Sokolov switched on his infrared visor. The tunnel stretched deep beneath the desert, a relic of an older smuggling network that had once moved weapons, diamonds, and stolen technology across the Sahara. Now it was his only way out. But he wasn't alone. As he moved deeper, his visor picked up heat signatures, at least 5 individuals ahead. Armed. Mercenaries? Orbis agents? Local smugglers? It didn't matter. Sokolov raised his silenced pistol and advanced. The ghost traders. The tunnel opened into a hidden cavern, lit by dim oil lamps. At the center, a group of men and women sat around an old terminal, one of the last remaining off-grid financial servers. Sokolov recognized the leader instantly. Bashir el-Hassan, a legend in the smuggling world. A man who had once controlled the entire West African black market economy, until Orbis crushed it. Now he was just another fugitive, hiding in the last shadows of a dying system. Bashir looked up, his eyes narrowing. Sokolov. Sokolov didn't lower his gun. Orbis is coming, he said. You need to move. Bashir smirked. They already own the world, my friend. What difference does it make? Sokolov tossed the encrypted drive onto the table. Because I have the kill switch. Silence. The others leaned forward. Bashir's smirk disappeared. You're lying. Sokolov pulled up his hacked data feed, a direct tap into Orbis internal servers. Real-time updates. Asterisk the final transfer of global assets was scheduled for 48 hours from now. Asterisk after that, Orbis economy would be completely untouchable. Asterisk every financial institution still resisting would be erased. But Sokolov had found something else buried in the data. A vulnerability. Vault 017 had been destroyed, but its backup servers were still online, hidden in 3 separate locations across the world. If he could take them down before the final transfer, he could still cripple the system. And he needed Bashir's network to do it. The final play. Bashir exhaled slowly, thinking. Then he nodded. All right, Sokolov. But if we do this, there's no going back. Sokolov's voice was cold. There was never any going back. Bashir turned to his crew. Prepare the relay teams. Contact our people in Istanbul, Sao Paulo, and Hong Kong. We hit all 3 backup servers at the same time. Sokolov checked his ammo. If this worked, they could shut down Orbis economy before it was too late. If it didn't, they would all be dead within the next 48 hours. The final mission had begun. February 10th, 2025, somewhere in the Western Sahara. The underground hideout was buzzing with activity. Sokolov had given them a mission. 3 backup servers, 1 in Istanbul, 1 in Sao Paulo, 1 in Hong Kong. If all 3 weren't destroyed within the next 48 hours, Orbis would complete the final transfer, and their grip on the global economy would be unbreakable. Sokolov moved through the dimly lit tunnels, his mind racing. The stakes had never been higher. If they failed, the last remnants of the old financial order would be erased, and the world would fall under total corporate control. There would be no countries, no governments, no independent economies, only Orbis. They had one shot at stopping it. The 3 fronts. Bashir had already mobilized his network. Asterisk Istanbul. A team of former Turkish intelligence operatives would hit the Orbis data center, hidden beneath an abandoned Ottoman-era fortress on the Bosphorus. Asterisk Sao Paulo. A faction of ex-cartel hackers would breach the South American server, located in a high-security skyscraper disguised as an investment firm. Asterisk Hong Kong. The most difficult target, Orbis' most advanced facility, buried inside an AI-controlled underground vault beneath Victoria Harbor. Each location was a fortress, guarded by elite security teams, automated defenses, and Orbis' private army. This wasn't just a data heist. This was a war. The countdown begins. Sokolov checked his watch. 48 hours left. Bashir approached him, lighting a cigar. My people are ready, he said. But there's a problem. Sokolov raised an eyebrow. What is it? Bashir exhaled slowly. Orbis knows we're coming. Sokolov's jaw tightened. He had expected this. Orbis wasn't stupid. The moment Vault 017 had gone dark, they had started locking down their remaining assets. Security had been tripled at all 3 locations. And worse, they had activated Project Revenant. The Revenants. Project Revenant was Orbis' kill team, a black ops division of former CIA, GRU, and Mossad operatives, trained to eliminate high-value targets without leaving a trace. They didn't take prisoners, and now they were hunting Sokolov. Bashir handed him a tablet. "We intercepted an Orbis transmission," he said. "They have a primary directive." Sokolov read the message. "Target, Sokolov. Terminate on sight. Status, high priority threat. Engage with extreme prejudice." He clenched his fists. Orbis wasn't just defending their empire. They were erasing anyone who could stop them. The Istanbul assault. The first team moved at dawn. Under the cover of a dense fog, a squad of Turkish ex-military operatives infiltrated the Ottoman fortress, where Orbis had hidden its European backup server. The structure was ancient, but the security was cutting-edge: automated turrets, biometric scanners, and AI-powered drones patrolling the perimeter. The operatives moved fast, taking out the guards with silenced weapons, hacking their way into the underground vault. Inside, they found the server core, humming with energy. But just as they planted the virus, the lights flickered red. Revenants. A kill squad of 4 men, armed with suppressed rifles and tactical gear, emerged from the shadows. The lead operative barely had time to react before a blade sliced across his throat, sending him crashing to the ground. Gunfire erupted in the dark. By the time the last shot was fired, only one Turkish operative was left standing. Bleeding barely alive, he detonated the virus, corrupting the server. Then he collapsed. The Istanbul node went dark. 1 down, 2 to go. The Sao Paulo breach. In Brazil, the ex-cartel hackers had managed to infiltrate the skyscraper, bypassing security using forged Orbis credentials. The data center was located on the top floor, a fortified command hub overlooking the city. But as they began the upload, the windows shattered. A tactical drone unit swooped in from above, launching precision rockets into the room. The explosion killed half the team instantly. The survivors scrambled for cover, returning fire, trying to hold their ground long enough to complete the breach. One of the hackers, Lucas Ferreira, managed to reach the server terminal, activating the failsafe. He had exactly 30 seconds before the virus completed its upload, but then he heard footsteps. A revenant was in the room. Lucas turned, too late. A silenced 9mm round slammed into his skull. He dropped instantly, but as he fell, his hand hit the final keystroke. The Sao Paulo node shut down. 2 down, 1 to go. The Hong Kong showdown. The final mission was the hardest. Sokolov had to go himself. Bashir's people didn't have the resources to infiltrate the Hong Kong vault, not with Orbis tightening security after the first 2 attacks. This wasn't a stealth mission anymore. This was a suicide run. Sokolov arrived in Hong Kong just after midnight, moving through the neon-lit city like a ghost. The Orbis vault was hidden beneath Victoria Harbor, accessible only through an underwater freight tunnel used for classified shipments. Sokolov had one ally left, an old Triad enforcer named Liang Wei, who still had contacts inside the Orbis-controlled black market. Liang met him in an abandoned warehouse. "This is madness," he muttered, handing Sokolov a disguised diving suit. Sokolov didn't respond. He was already suiting up. He had 1 hour to get in, plant the virus, and get out before Orbis locked the city down completely. He slipped into the dark waters, moving through the underwater tunnel, dodging motion sensors and automated sentries. The vault was massive, a subterranean fortress of glass and steel, humming with power. And waiting for him inside, the revenants, the final stand. Sokolov breached the vault, moving fast, silenced pistol in hand. The kill team was already there, 4 operatives, masked, armed with submachine guns and knives. No words, just violence. The first revenant lunged. Sokolov spun, slamming his knife into the man's ribs. Gunfire erupted. He ducked behind a server rack, returning fire, taking down 2 more. The last revenant was different. Faster, deadlier. Sokolov recognized him instantly. Alexei Morozov, former FSB Alpha unit. A ghost killer. Morozov smirked. "You can't win." Sokolov didn't answer. He just activated the virus. The vault systems began shutting down, one by one. Morozov's smirk vanished. He lunged. The fight was brutal, blades flashing, fists colliding. Morozov was stronger. Sokolov was faster. The moment Morozov overextended, Sokolov slammed his knife into the man's throat. Silence. Then, alarms blaring. Sokolov grabbed the hard drive and ran. As he emerged from the tunnel, he saw it. All across Hong Kong, lights were flickering. The Orbis network was collapsing. They had done it. The final transfer was stopped. Orbis was dying, but Sokolov wasn't safe yet. A helicopter hovered above him. The last revenant was still coming, and the war wasn't over. Not yet,